Good evening, I'm Susan Mulholland, and welcome to Artbeat. Tonight we're going to pay a visit with Raymond Barger, a poet-sculptor. He was a long-time resident of Bucks County, and recently he returned. And then we'll go to a very unique gallery in New Hope, Pennsylvania. And finally, we'll speak with a young abstract artist and furniture maker, Mark Kaufman. But first, come with me and we'll meet Raymond.
I recently spent a pleasant afternoon with sculptor-poet Raymond Barger, a vital 83-year-old man who had just flown in from California to help locate the new site for his sculpture, Transition. We met in a warehouse where his sculpture will be stored until its unveiling at the James Michener Art Center. We discussed the sculpture, its origins, and its design.
I designed this thinking that it was introduction. You'll notice the bottom parts of it is all soft and round.
Yes.
And if you're underneath it looking up, that's what the people are who walks beneath it. But the top side is sharp lined and angular, and that's what the buildings are up above. So it introduces the people to the steel and glass structure. It introduces one to the other. It has some of the parts of both. That's Transition.
On a blustery day in January 1965, Transition, Raymond's 3-ton bronze sculpture, was hoisted into place at the J.C. Penney building on the Avenue of the Americas in New York City. Now it has the beautiful patina of an old coin, and it will be reclaimed, rededicated, and donated to the people of Bucks County. Because the present owners of the building are going to destroy the sculpture area, Mr. Barger was contacted to see if he could find a home for his sculpture.
Didn't know how to take it apart. And they had to depend on me. And I said, well, what are you going to do with it? They said, we don't know. I said, well, give it to me. And after 3 months of carrying on and going, all of a sudden they said, it's yours if you can get it away on a certain day.
And this is where your good friends came to your rescue.
Yes. So I called up the Chamber of Commerce and said, I've got that sculpture 25 feet long and weighs 6,000 pounds. Would you like to have it in Bucks County? Because I lived there for 23 years. They said, would we like to have it? And then they called back and said, the director knows it and loves it. And
As we spoke with Raymond later in the afternoon, he told us more about the process he used constructing Transition.
I did it in a shipyard. And I made a keel, just like a sailboat. I made ribs, just like a sailboat. And I planked the whole thing, just like wooden planks. Only there were 7/8 of an inch bronze strips, and they were welded. Now, there are over 6,000 linear feet of those 7/8 inch strips in that, more than a mile, in that one piece of sculpture. And they're welded internally with welds about this long, and then you have to skip, because if you don't, that warps it. But that's the right kind of weld to make also. So the sculpture was made and completed, and it looked like a boat. And so when I made the bronze one, I rented a space in a shipyard and did it there, because they also have cranes to lift it around. So everything worked just fine.
Mr. Barger never travels without his portfolio, which, as you can see, is evidence of his vast creative talents. He likes to do things on a very grand scale. Here we see a picture of him with a tiny sculpture in his hand. And next, we see the sculpture with a very tiny Raymond Barger. met with Raymond, he was wearing quite an interesting medal, which has quite an interesting story.
This is a title, and it's called Cavaliere, and it means that I can ride a horse when most of you have to walk, something like that. It's an ancient thing. It's like an earl or a duke or cavalier in French, but it's in Italy, and it's in the Republic of San Marino, a little mountaintop republic. I learned from the ambassador, who got to be my friend, the American ambassador to all of Italy, who was stationed in Rome. I had the Prix de Rome, and I had my own studio. And on one day a week in the afternoon, I'd have a little party, and he came all the time. And he liked what I was doing. And so he said, well, the San Marino wants a bust of Lincoln. They've been wanting one ever since Lincoln was president, and they've never gotten one yet. So that excited me. So I was sent to New York and Washington and got some photographs, and I made a bust of Lincoln by sketches, and then I made a plastic clay model. And this ambassador said, when that's finished, I'll make the dedication speech. And so things just went on like that. San Marino, when he was president, said, although your nation is small, it is nonetheless one of the most in history. You are the oldest red states of which I am president. This is the youngest. We salute you, like that. Well, ever since I got to have one. So I have money from the scholarship, so I made one and gave it to them. And they dedicated on their 300th birthday in 1937. They were 300 years old. The United States is still only 212 years old now. That was 50-some years ago. So you can see it tied in there pretty good. Now they gave me they made Lincoln an honorary citizen. So they made me an honorary citizen too. But because my gift was positive and in 3 dimensions, they also give me a title, Cavaliere.
Mr. Barger feels his most important work is the equality sculpture. It is a piece which consists of 2 open, centered squares which fit together to symbolize 2 people with their arms interlocked. At one time, the National Park Service approved plans for the sculpture to stand on the banks of the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. However, this has not been carried through and has been a big disappointment for Raymond. A few of Raymond's sculptures can be found in and around Bucks County. One is a giant hand, which stands outside the Lisbon Contractors Building in Danborough, Pennsylvania. Another can be found at the James A. Michener branch of the Bucks County Library in Quakertown. For the past 20 years, Mr. Barger has had a unique way of signing his sculptures and his poetry.
This is a trademark. It's copyrighted. That's an R backwards and a B forward. And it's straight lines. And I can do it with a chisel on my sculpture, and I do it like this on my poetry. Now the date, this is the United States. First I'll locate where I am. USA, that's my country. And the year, as of today, is 2/12. And the month is the 8th month. And the 11th day. Now, many people don't understand what that is, so I will explain it, but I'll just show you one thing here. If I put USA and put 1989 under it, that is so false. It's impossible, it's impractical, and it doesn't make any sense, because there was no United States 1,989 years ago. There was a United States 212 years ago, And on the 4th of July, the nation, in the month of July, the nation was born, and on the 4th of July is what we celebrate it for. Now, that was 212 years ago, and July is the birthday of the nation. So July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February is the 8th month, and that's what I have there, and the 11th day. And that's the day that the sculpture left New York City and arrived to Bucks County, its new home.
Raymond wrote a poem which relates to transition and its new home at the James A. Michener Art Center.
Transition. Once these strong prison walls contained breakers of laws, victims of poor education. In dull class students rot, low-paid tutors teach not in this world's wealthiest nation. Now these same walls contain our culture's art remains, record Bucks County's history. This lesson has been learned. We invite art's return to enhance future's destiny. Transition means to change. Only better remains. Positive thoughts have potential. Donors' motive aspire. Ideals to reach higher. Creative minds are essential. Raymond Granville Barger, Sculptor, Poet, USA, 212-811.
I hope you enjoyed our visit with Raymond as much as I did. And now let's go to a 200-year-old building that houses a very unique gallery.
Tonight I have a special treat for you. We're going to take a gallery tour, but the gallery is in an inn, and the inn is the Logan Inn, located in New Hope, Pennsylvania. It's been here since 1727, but it's just recently been renovated. We're going to have a special tour with Gwen Davis, the innkeeper. Hello, Gwen.
Good evening. Welcome to the Logan Inn.
Thank you. Art has played a very important part in this inn, hasn't it?
For many years.
I'd like to see the portraits that I've heard about and some of your other rooms. Will you take us to them?
Be delighted to.
Gwen, what do you call this room?
This is called our garden room, which we use for dining. We use for breakfast, lunch, dinner. We've used it for wedding receptions, private parties. Works very well. As you can hear the rain on the rooftop now. It just
The rain
all
sounds
adds
wonderful.
to it.
And of course, the beautiful stained glass really adds to it. Who did this?
This is done by a local stained glass artisan, Val Sigsteed, who's Scandinavian. He's well known in the area for his work. We have some in the tavern room as well as in here.
It really sets the tone for this room, doesn't it?
Oh, it's very warm. It's it reflects the inn.
Yes. And there's an outside room adjacent to this for summer parties, I presume.
Yes, it has a gazebo in it directly behind you and a dining area. We can accommodate a number of people in using the outside as well as the inside.
But the stained glass definitely makes this room. And you carry it through into the restrooms, I believe.
Into the restrooms in our tavern room as well.
Oh, we need to go see that tavern room.
All right.
The name of this room is what?
This is the tavern room, which dates back to about 1728. When they did the renovation here, all of these ceiling tiles were added. The murals that you see on the wall were uncovered. They were totally covered by flocked wallpaper.
Now, isn't there an interesting story about those murals?
Well, we believe the artist paid his bar bills this way. The fireplace, this mantle, was totally reproduced because what was here was totally rotten.
It's a beautiful, and it does look old, doesn't it?
Yes, the renovation ran over $1.6 million. So it was beautifully done and very costly.
And you plan to use every wall in the tavern and in our other areas for displaying artwork?
Oh, absolutely. In our rooms as well. We have artwork in the rooms and in the hallways upstairs.
Oh, that would be delightful to see. When 6 is my favorite number, and this is room 6. Tell me about this.
Well, this is a very interesting room. It's a room we believe is haunted. When you come in.
Let's go in. Gwen, please tell me more about this ghost story. What do you mean by that?
Well, we supposedly have 2 ghosts that are in this room. They think they were the former innkeeper's grandparents, the portrait of which is in the hallway.
Yes.
There are inexplicable things that happen in this room. People can't take photographs in here that turn out. The television turns off for no reason whatsoever. There's a smell of lavender in here.
Now, what does the lavender have to do with?
Well, in the portrait, you'll notice that there's lavender in the owner's wife's hair, and her husband, we believe it's a wedding portrait, has a boutonniere of lavender.
And people say that they can smell this in the room?
A number of times. The television, which you can't see, it's in the armoire there,
Right.
turns off for no apparent reason. The room is quite cold. They're just uncanny things that aren't explainable.
Now, I believe that this renovation was started by the present owner.
Stephen Cates started it in January of last year. It was completed in April.
Now, didn't he have a ghostly experience?
Well, he did. He slept here one night. He woke up and saw this body next to him. As you can see the mirror straight ahead in the armoire. He swore he'd never come in the room again.
But he has, of course.
Yes.
I noticed that in here, too, there's artwork hung.
There is in all of the rooms, and it blends very well with the old original pieces that are here. The Victorian bed.
Yes, and this is
These-
original, you said.
Yes, it is.
And the armoire hides the TV, so it feels and looks very old. It's so tastefully done.
Thank you. It was done with a great deal of forethought, and the emphasis in art, as you can see, is throughout the whole inn.
And it's a lovely room because when you look out the windows, you get such a beautiful view of New Hope.
Oh, you do. The
seems
best
so-
of the historic district.
Yes, tiny like a Victorian village. Or
That it is.
it's absolutely lovely here.
We love it.
The Logan Inn serves as a unique gallery because guests may buy the art right off the walls. They plan to have different artists about every 6 weeks, and the public is invited 7 days a week to drop by. You can find the Logan Gallery in the middle of New Hope, Pennsylvania. The next artist, Mark Kaufman, had his pictures on display there this month. Let's go talk to him. Mark, you work in many mediums. Would you tell us about what it is that you do?
Well, I work in pastels, works on paper, and I do drawings, which are works on paper as well, but they're different because they have many different shapes and are more abstract than my pastels.
The drawings are done with ink or?
With lead pencils and all different forms of colored mediums, markers, splashes of paint, acetate, three-dimensional pieces.
Now, do you call these collages?
Yes, like mixed media collages, but they're basically on paper.
Yes.
The beginnings are started on paper, and then I culminate into different shapes and colors. I do acrylics for my larger paintings, and then I kind of like throw the paint around and come up with something interesting and step back and look at it, and you know, if I feel like it's complete, then I won't touch it, you know.
Oh, the Pollock effect.
Exactly. I've been working with furniture for many years, and I'm just getting into this contemporary, very high-tech kind of style. And it's very fun for me because each new piece is like a breath of fresh air, you know.
It's very Italian. I mean, to me, it looks very Italian in style. Were you inspired by Italian architects or furniture designers?
Yes, I was in Italy, and that basically sparked my enthusiasm for the design of furniture. So I looked at examples of that over there, and then I said, well, I'd like to try it this way or a different way. So I just started designing and working on paper, roughs, and then getting aluminum and metal and just diving right in.
Do you bend the furniture yourself, use torches and weld yourself, or do you have this done?
Pieces that have to be bent, fabricators will do that for me. And I do a lot of my own welding. And I guess you have to sit and look at the piece itself and ask yourself what you're trying to portray and what kind of feeling that you want to create with the shape of whether it's a lamp or a table or a chair. You know, you want to portray that feeling and then add on to it, and each new thing that you do is different, and you say, wow, that's great, you know, and you don't know when to stop, and they say, whoa, and you look back and you say, that's it, and you don't touch it. It's just something that you have in your mind, you know, you go during the day and you know, you're looking at many things during the day.
Yes.
And you walk in I walk in my studio and I sit down and I'm, you know, looking around and I say, oh, I saw an image today and I can't really pinpoint it or what it is, but it was kind of like a half of a sphere.
Yes.
And then I might sketch that and then come up with something that's interesting to go with it. Each different piece that you do, I think, is depends on what kind of material you use.
I noticed that you do a lot of clocks. Is there a reason for this?
I think they're fun. I did a very assortment of different kinds of clocks and, you know, different colors, different shapes, square, rectangles, and they're just fun to do, and they brighten up a room or, you know.
Now, how long have you been a practicing artist? I mean, since you were a young boy?
Well, I started, I think, before I was in high school, and then I got pretty serious in high school. I was, you know, trying to develop my skills, and my art teacher said, I think you should take this a little bit further. And I said, okay, let's go. And he started getting me into competitions and shooting for scholarships. He was very broad in the art market, you know, with the public, in galleries, and that influenced me a lot. When he says, you know, your artwork is great,
Yes.
let's go out with it and let's get some response.
Even at that early age, in high
Yes.
school? Well, then, where did you go to college?
I went to York Academy of Arts in small York, Pennsylvania.
Is that a 4-year school?
That was a 3-year school, a very good one though. And when I got into York Academy, right then and there I said, this is it.
You knew you were
Yeah,
in the right
I'm
place.
going to do what I have to do because I really enjoy it.
At the present time, your art is not supporting you.
No.
And you're in advertising?
Yes, I'm a creative director for Culber Advertising.
So it can go hand in hand
Yes.
with some of your...
I give some of my style from, you know, fine art right into the commercial aspect of advertising. So it's very fresh.
I noticed the Marilyn Monroe collage at the Logan Inn. Did Marilyn have some significance in your life?
I just think she was very exciting, and I think portrayed that in the style of her life, and it was fun to do. So with the things that she did and the trouble she got into, and it was exciting doing the piece.
Is there one medium that you care the most about, or that you think best exemplifies Mark as a person?
Well, that's hard because you'll do one medium for a week and then you'll do another medium for a week, and you'll keep rolling over, and the mediums will change and the materials will change and the sizes will change and the colors and shapes. So once you start something else in a different style or medium, it's very fresh and new. So you can...
So that's where you are at the moment, and so
Right,
that's you.
right.
Your dining table is so interesting. Is this a recent project of yours?
Yes, it is. I wanted to bring together steel and stone and glass. I think the stone reminds me of, very outdoor kind of idea. The stone is very heavy, but the glass is very refined, and dainty. And the steel reminds me of a support structure.
Now, did you fabricate this yourself?
Yes.
You did the welding or whatever's necessary. Do you go out and look for these huge rocks?
Well, basically, I've been to quarries to find what I'm looking for, and which is, maybe exciting to me, but someone would say, well, what are you doing? And I'd say, well, I'm getting a big piece of stone for my dining room table.
Yes.
And they'd look at me like...
And you often do little centerpieces. For
Yes.
instance, the one that's sitting here on the dining room table.
Yeah, they're really fun. They're just kind of like a sketch of something. So...
Does this one represent anything in particular?
My centerpieces are basically, the small pieces of stone that I think are interesting, and then I'll work in there with some steel or aluminum to give you the two phases,
The enhancement of it.
Right.
Mark, do you have titles for your works?
I don't title everything, because when I do something, I might just do it, and not have a title for it. But a lot of my drawings have titles, and my pastels have titles. I start with some kind of feeling of what I want to say, and then I end up with something close to that, but it may say something else in a different, language or
It could surprise
pattern.
you sometimes,
Yes.
I'm sure. I'd like to thank Raymond Granville Barger for a delightful Sunday afternoon, Gwen Davis, innkeeper at the Logan Inn, for a very interesting tour, and finally Mark Kaufman, a rising young star on the art scene, for a delightful conversation. This is Susan Mulholland saying good night for Art Beat.